Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's show on the Gamut Network. I am thrilled to have this amazing young woman on the show today who is going to tell us about her journey as well as her amazing YouTube channel, which I think we're all going to learn some tips from. So with that, I'd love to introduce Michaela to the show. Hi, Michaela.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm so thrilled to have you on. I feel like we have a celebrity on the show
Oh, my
today.
goodness. You're too sweet. I'm excited to be here.
Can we first start, if you wouldn't mind sharing about your story, your journey, your disability?
Yeah, so my name is Michaela Davert. I am 21 years old, and I was born with a physical disability called osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a connective tissue disorder that's caused by insufficient makeup of collagen, and collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body. So a lack of makeup of this causes many different health effects. There are many different types of osteogenesis imperfecta, and I have the second most severe type. Until most obvious, it affects my height, and I'm only 2 feet 7 inches tall. I've had over 100 fractures throughout my lifetime and endured about 25 surgeries, and it also affects the respiratory system, and I also have very severe scoliosis, which I'm actually going to be enduring a almost life-saving surgery this summer. So it involves a lot, and I think when people hear me describe my disability, they feel this overwhelming amount of sadness for me because it overwhelms their mind of what it must be like to endure so much. And I have a great life. I think people look at me and they see this challenge that is my daily mantra, I guess you could say, is my challenges.
And we froze for a second. I don't
Oh,
want to.
no, okay.
Your daily mantra is what?
So something that I like to say is my challenges may be more visible than anybody else's, but we all deal with challenges in this world, and the only difference between mine and maybe yours is that mine is just more visible than yours. And I think as a society, we view disability as a tragedy and as a sadness, and I wouldn't take this away if I could. I wouldn't trade my circumstances if I could, and it's led to the most amazing opportunities. The people that I've gotten to meet and the opportunities that I've had, even by speaking to you guys today, are all things that I wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to do if it wasn't for my disability. And so I think we can take our challenges and turn them into blessings. And it's up to us what we decide to do and make of our circumstances.
Well, you are just about the most perfect guest I could ask for, because that is really the purpose of having this show, is that I want to, open up the world's view of people with disabilities and really rebrand how they view people with disabilities. And like you said, you're doing great. You are a light, you are successful, you are beautiful, and like you said, you wouldn't trade it for the world because it has led you to amazing experiences, and what that we are certainly going to talk about in a little bit. But I want to go back to how you managed through so many surgeries and fractures. How did that affect your daily life in terms of going to school or friends and relationships? How did you kind of manage through all of that?
Yeah, so that's a really common question. So my mom and I also have a twin brother, and we all have osteogenesis imperfecta type 3 as well. And so having a family unit, and my dad also has an a mild form of cerebral palsy. And so having a family unit that all has disability, and both of my parents have grown up in really great families. And so I think having that positive family unit has really shaped my view as well. And we've all dealt with similar things, but it has affected us each a little bit differently. And so in that way, we've kind of learned things and managed things in the way that we have to individually. But it's affected my life. It doesn't define who I am, but it affects every aspect of my life. Going to school, I never really had a lot of friends. In high school, I was an honor student. I was part of 2 national honor societies, and I tried to be as involved as I could, but I didn't have a lot of friends. It's really sad, but my twin brother and I sat alone every day at lunch. People weren't very welcoming. You were either in their group or you weren't. And I think a lot of that stems from the high school that I went to was huge on athletics. And obviously that's not something that we could partake in. And so our peers didn't really have the chance to get to know us really. They didn't really get to see like who we are. They just saw us as somebody, I think, that uses a wheelchair in the classroom, and so they really didn't get the chance to know us as people. And so I'm definitely glad that that chapter of my life is over. But as far as the medical aspect, there are definitely hard times, and I think people view my positive attitude and they think I'm invincible and nothing ever gets me down. But that's not true.
But you're
Everybody
human.
has, yeah, I'm human just like
Yeah.
everybody else, and everybody has hard days and bad days. And there are days that I'm just like, dang it, like I gotta go through this again, or things like that. But as I've gotten older, things have gotten better as well. I haven't had a fracture in about 4 years. So as you get older, it does get better. But my childhood was spent with a lot of surgeries and medical appointments and things like that. But I never viewed it as like, oh my gosh, like I have to. It wasn't like I was lived a normal life and then was like brought into this world of medical necessities and things like that. It was always a part of my life, so I didn't really view it as like this big thing or something that's unusual.
That's an interesting point that I'd like to dig into a little bit because as you know, my son has muscular dystrophy and
Yeah.
was born with muscular dystrophy. And I've had so many guests on the show that something has happened during their life to cause their disability, whether it was an accident or a disease that they endured, etc. And in some ways, look, you never want to say one is better than the other.
Exactly.
But I would imagine that it has got to be even more difficult when you go from life one way to life completely and utterly different and changed. Whereas my son's life, your life, he doesn't know any other life. He's known this life.
Exactly. And I think that's so interesting that you brought that up because I actually did a video on my channel where I talk about, because a huge like common question that I would get is, when did I accept my disability? And it's not something that I have ever had to quote accept. It's always been a part of my life. And I think that it is so much more difficult to quote accept these new circumstances because they are new to that person. They know what it's like to not have physical barriers. They know what it's like to not have society view them a certain way. They know what it's like to be more physically independent than they are now or than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have that other view of it where this is the only life that I know. These are the only circumstances that I know. And so those perspectives are just so different. And I think that that's really important for people to understand when they learn about disability is when it's something that you're born with and that is all you ever know. My perspective and somebody that's been in an accident is probably very different because they may not be in that quote acceptance stage of their life and want to go back to the way that their life used to be. But I think that also goes back to people that are born with disabilities. It's so important for us to be the voice of that disability isn't a bad thing. It's just a new set of circumstances, but it doesn't mean that your life is over. It just means that you have to do things a little bit differently.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of transition to where you are now, but I can't help but say, for those that missed out on you in high school, I feel very sad for them. That they
Thank
missed
you.
an opportunity to get to know such an amazing young woman, and your brother too. And look, let's hope that the world evolves so that young kids that were in your position today, maybe there's more acceptance and understanding that people with disabilities are people. They are
Yeah,
kids.
absolutely. And I
They
think,
are just like everybody else.
yeah, and I think it's interesting because as my social media platform has grown, I've had a few people in high school that I didn't even know reach out and say, "Hey, I've seen you in the hallways at school, and I think what you're doing is really cool." And so I think now that they see what I'm doing now, I find it interesting that now that I have this social platform, is when they decide to reach out. And I think that people forget that I notice those things.
Yes.
So it's just very interesting. And I think also I don't want people to think like, oh, I need to be somebody's friend with a disability as charity. Like, don't, like everybody connects with people differently, whether it be personality wise. And so if you want to connect with somebody, make a relationship with them, have it be genuine. Like, we're not a charity case, and I think as a society, me having a physical disability, I've gotten to see the best in people, and I've also gotten to see the worst in people. And so I have a very unique perspective on people and how they act and how they react. And so somebody that may think that a person is so kind and wonderful, I've seen a completely different side of them based on how they treat somebody with a disability.
Right.
And so I think that's also really interesting.
I do as well. And I think it's important to underscore what you said, that people with disabilities are not charity. And it's where it's the population is often pigeonholed into that category, which is why I want to be spotlighting all the wonderful things that people in this population are doing, which leads me to your social platform. Can we talk a little bit about this? First of all, this is something that you are doing while being a full-time college student,
Yeah.
which is amazing,
Thank you.
at Davenport University.
Yeah.
So tell us about your platform.
So I have a YouTube channel called Fun Size Style. I started this YouTube channel back in high school. My junior year, I really started diving into it more, quote, full time. And I started watching makeup tutorials and fashion videos, and really was amazed about what people were doing with social platforms and what it became. It became a business. Social media gives a chance for everybody to share their story. And I think one thing that I also say when I talk about my channel is people think it's so great that I have this following and that I have this YouTube channel, but anybody can share their story. We all have a story, whether you have a disability or not. So I mainly do makeup and fashion videos. I started diving into this more, quote, full time in my junior year of high school, and I realized that there weren't any young women with physical disabilities that really looked like me or had a similar story. And I knew that there had to be other young women with physical disabilities that also were interested in whether it be modeling or just getting themselves out there in the beauty and fashion industry. And so I wanted to be that new face. And there may have been other YouTube creators in the space then, but they weren't really highlighted. And so I wanted to be that new face. And so I just decided to start. And my old videos were very cringy. Most of them are not there anymore. There's a few oldie but goodies, but I've definitely gotten better. And of course, it first started out with my friends and family watching. And then I realized that it started growing. And it was no longer just friends and family watching. It was people watching from all over the world.
Oh
and
how long did that take for you to get out there?
Yeah, a really consistent growth, like about 2 or 3 years.
Amazing. And when you are doing your tutorials, are you actually showing people how to put on makeup? Are you talking about different products?
Yeah, so all the above.
All the above. And how about from fashion? Are you talking about the trends and what's happening? Or
Yeah,
are
so
you
one
speaking
challenge
about
I know,
your
like,
section?
for people with my disability is finding clothes that are age appropriate. A lot of clothes, I obviously have to wear kids' clothing, and so a lot of the clothes feature like Disney characters and sequins and sparkles, and that's all fine and dandy because that's what most kids like to wear. But I'm 21 years old and I don't want to wear those things, and so I like to share where I purchase my clothing from and how I style it, because I know that's another barrier that a lot of people with my disability face. And I think things are getting better in that realm, but it is still a challenge for a lot of people. But what I love about fashion is there are ways that you can make it work. You just have to be creative and realize that different styles and different body types work for different people.
And where do you shop? Where are the best sites that you feel are your style, but also help with people with your type of disability?
Yeah, so some of my favorite stores are Forever 21 and Nordstrom Rack and Old Navy, Target, those kinds of stores. So I have a lot of my like more dressier clothes I do get from Dillard's. Like when I need dress clothes are really hard to find. So that's where I primarily get my dress clothes. But
And
for
who are you
casual,
wearing today?
this is from a brand called Amy Buyer, and it's actually from Nordstrom Rack. So
Love it. It's beautiful.
thank
Very
you.
on trend.
Yes.
Perfect for this. And how about shoes? I would imagine that shoes can be challenging based on
Yeah, so
what
shoes
happens
are
when
the most
you get,
difficult.
yeah.
Yeah, shoes are the most difficult. And even for my disability, I have really small feet. My mom and my twin brother all wear a larger size than me. And when you wear a larger size shoes, even in kids' shoes, it's easier to find age appropriate shoes. And so I mainly shop for shoes on Amazon or Zulily.
Mhm.
It's really, like, even I still struggle to find shoes that are age appropriate, and even like I have really wide feet, so just that kind of thing. And so I think shoes is one area that's always going to be difficult, but again just have to be creative in what I can find.
I really do believe, and I've spoken to many others about this, that there is a market out there for people that have short stature, have your disability, have dwarfism, because
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to wear children's clothes that, you know, hopefully look age appropriate. And it's certainly with shoes. I mean,
yeah,
I just really strongly feel that there is a market out there that would purchase just very much smaller versions of adult shoes. And I think we need to be very vocal on that to really have the
I agree.
industry
Yeah, shoes are like the
understand.
most difficult. Like clothing is like pretty much super easy now, I feel like, but shoes I'm just like, dang, I would just like to have some more variety in shoes. But it's just, it's one of those things. And that's when I think having disability, sometimes you just gotta go with what, what works, or just do the best that you can, because even in today's world there are still a lot of barriers, even if it's something small like finding a nice pair of shoes.
Yes, exactly. Something that generally we all able-bodied people have taken for granted.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, need a new pair of shoes, you go buy a new pair of shoes. It's not, you know, a big situation. So before we go, but I want to make sure that I um, have everybody go to your YouTube channel, which is Fun Size Style on YouTube.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if they want to get in touch with you on Instagram or
Yes,
any other
Instagram.
social platforms, can you let us know what your handles are, please?
Yeah, so it's all Fun Size Style. I'm mainly most active on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So it's
Facebook.
all
Okay.
Fun Size Style. So it's all streamlined.
Perfect. 'Cause I'm sure people are going to want to learn more about you or ask you questions, etc.
Absolutely, I'm all for it. I'm always available.
Fantastic. And before we go, I like to ask my guests all the same final question
Okay.
because I think this is a big part of the process in life, and that is manifesting or believing in what you want to happen in your life. And I do that through creating vision boards. So on my vision board, I have people that I want to meet or who I want to, have an interview with, like Ellen or Oprah. I want this show to be on television or Netflix, any of the above. And I'm going to make it happen because I see it every day and it's in front of my face. Who or what would be on your vision board?
Oh, that is such a good question. So I love that. So something that's really huge to me, I want to have my name be, I want to be the new face of CoverGirl. I think CoverGirl is all about diversity and in the makeup industry, but we have yet to have somebody like me with a physical disability be that new face of CoverGirl. And I think even if it wasn't CoverGirl, some large makeup industry to feature a young woman with a physical disability. And I think what's also interesting about that is a lot of companies and a lot of brands feature or seem to feature to me a lot of the same types of disability in their advertisements. And not that that's bad, but disability is such a broad range, whether it's
Absolutely.
a more common disability or something like mine that's more rare. We all want a platform and we all have different stories. And so something that's like mine that's more rare still isn't out there. And while there are still progress being made in that way, again, disabilities that are more rare are still hidden from the public eye. And I'd love to be on like a talk show. I love the Kelly Clarkson talk show. I love that talk show.
Kelly, you hear this?
Yes.
Find her.
Right? I know.
Right? And CoverGirl. This is your next lady. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting and why I'm so passionate about being, quote, climbing to the top isn't necessarily for my own benefit, but because I have such a different perspective on how I view life. And every day I get messages and comments. They leave this really nice comment of like, oh, you're so beautiful, and but then they leave this, and I'm so sorry you have to deal with so much. And it's like, stop it. Like, don't say that. Like, I'm telling you I'm happy with my life, and you should be happy for me. And so I want the whole world to know that my life isn't a tragedy. And you writing that comment, I don't know you, but what I do know about you is that you deal with something. But I don't have pity on you. And so I don't want others to have pity on me just because my circumstances are different.
Absolutely.
They're not bad. They're just
and
different.
What a difference it would have made to that younger self of yours in high school if somebody like you was the face of CoverGirl. Don't you think that would have reshaped your experience growing up?
100%, yeah.
That you could be doing this for generations to come so that their experience is different than your experience was. And I believe you are going to do it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Michaela, it was such a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel on the Gamut Network. And please like our social handles at Gamut Management, because there's so many amazing stories out there that we have to share. Again, Michaela, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.